transportation for buses. We're working on the discipline issues that were raised. There have been some good things that have come out slowly. That being said, my phone is still ringing off the hook, and I'm still getting messages and emails about what's happening in transportation with the way routes are given out, the way people are being treated, how people are being let go. There's just still all kinds of concerns there.
So obviously that's still being worked on. You have the recommendations that were laid out that are going to be kind of implemented over time, I imagine. I actually got a message from a listener earlier today when I put it out there on social media that you were going to be on the show today, mentioning something that I didn't know about. My children are in Pinellas County, so I'm a little more personally in the know with what's going on in Pinellas County. But apparently, she said there are some situations where elementary students are riding on the same buses as high school students, and they're at pre-dawn at bus stops with these students, and that to her is something that's just, hugely disturbing. That really concerns her. What's up with that? I mean, that just seems like such a bad idea. I can't imagine having little tiny kids on a bus with big kids who, let's face it, high school kids can be mean.
Well, and inappropriate.
Oh, yeah.
In all kinds of ways. Unfortunately, logistically, there's just no way we can do it with as many schools as we have in Hillsborough County, and the shortage of bus drivers that we have. So we have to combine routes. It is an opportunity, though, if we do things right, to get these older students to mentor and be like buddies to these little kids. There are more and more young students riding buses now than there used to be in the days when I was growing up, or when my children were small even. Parents are working longer hours, so they're having to rely on the transportation system a lot more. We try to segregate the students on the bus so that the older students sit in the back and the younger students sit up front. That is one thing that we're trying to do to control any kind of misbehaviors or anything on the bus. But it is an opportunity for the bus driver to work with the students to have them look out for these younger students.
So now, one of the things in Pinellas, my children all ride the bus, and my youngest daughter is still in elementary school, and she actually has a teacher that rides the bus with them. Is that something that happens in Hillsborough, or if not, why is it possible for them to do that in Pinellas but not?
I think that could be a union issue, a negotiated issue. We do have aides and what we call riders on the bus, so that the bus driver, because she's and he they're keeping their eyes on the road. They're facing forward, and they've got 70 students behind them, and all kinds of things can happen.
Wait, 70?
Some buses
can hold
can
70?
have 70 students. Yes.
I would have never guessed that buses were that high capacity.
Yes, they are. So you've got all these kids behind you. So we have riders on the bus, and they help to monitor.
Isn't that a song?
Riders on the bus?
Sorry, keep going.
Now I won't get that out of my head now.
Sorry.
Thank you. A little earworm there. But anyway, so we've got those, but so we have a shortage of them as well. We're dealing with all kinds of issues in transportation with personnel.
So what are the answers, and what does it all have to do with the superintendent?
Well, the answers are the people who are in charge, first and foremost. If people are feeling like they're being disrespected, if they're being abused at work, we're losing people. The turnover rate is really, really high. The pay, and we're trying to work on that. We just voted to give pay raises to transportation workers. Keeping the buses on the road, it's really frustrating if someone's sitting on the road, half of the day, 2 or 3 days a week. We can't keep allowing these buses to get back on the road when they're not going to stay, on the road. So that's part of it. the way people are treated, though, is one of the biggest issues. So even though we've made some changes at the top in transportation, there's still some supervisors that are, maybe should look at some other type of work.
Maybe they're not cut out for that particular line.
Maybe.
So let's shift gears just a little bit and have some fun. A little over a year ago when we spoke on the show and we first started really talking about the issues with Superintendent Elia, that was kind of the beginning of this unfolding saga between the two of you, in which it's been quite an amusing back and forth, and you've had some guts, quite frankly. Talk to me a little bit about, so that's April just tried to hit the cough button.
And it doesn't work?
That cough button
Okay.
doesn't work. That's all right. You're a person, we clear our throats, right? Anyways, during the campaign, there was an issue, the sign gate, let's call it, right? Talk to us a little bit about that, because I think it's a really funny story, what kind of happened with this. But at the same time, it's also serious, I think, because it raises issues about where the superintendent stands and whether or not there's some boundaries being crossed here as it pertains to your guys' relationship.
Well, first and foremost, I mean, I think one of the things that I've learned in this job, as I've been doing it, is that a lot of people believe that she is our boss, and we are elected by the people. We hire the superintendent. We, the board, there are 7 of us, and we evaluate the superintendent, and we are her boss. The people are our boss. She answers to the people through us. I take that role very seriously. I was not going to run for re-election, and then this whole transportation issue just kind of blew up, and I felt obligated. First, the obligation came to those employees that stepped forward and put their names on it, because I knew that when I left, they would be buried, because there is a kind of a retaliatory system in place in the Hillsborough County School District. So I stayed on, and what happened was it turned out that the superintendent made a referendum on her and I. I just wanted to talk about the things that I had done and the things that I wanted to do in my next 4 years of service to this community. And there was a lot of behind the scenes play by the superintendent in my race, and the sign pretty much just put it out there to everybody that she was supporting my opponent. And when I got the call from the media, I said to them that it's her First Amendment right. It's her right to support whoever she decides to support. It's her right to vote for whoever she thinks is the best person for the job. But whether or not the sign was appropriate was a different story. Because I just don't feel like an appointed superintendent should be getting involved in trying to seat the people that write her evaluation. That, to me, I felt crossed the line. And from everything that I've seen, the people feel the same way too, because I've had so many people come up to me, and they had been watching all of the machinations taking place, and all of the things happening in the school district between her and I, and not just her and I, Janelle. It's not just April and Mary Ellen. It's Susan and Mary Ellen. It's Cindy and Mary Ellen. And I have a feeling with 2 new board members, they're going to see that side of her too, eventually. I mean, right now she's on her best behavior. But, and I don't think that the sign had anything to do with my overwhelming victory, because I had a 65% victory in my race, 65 to 35. I don't think that had anything to do with it, because at 7:15, when the numbers were released from the early voting and the vote by mail, I had a 63% lead at that point. I think what the sign did was it showed the public what I've been dealing with and what I've been saying has been happening for many years. I said it on your show back when, how long ago? Almost a year ago.
Yeah, it was a year or so.
Yeah.
Maybe a little less than a year. I don't know.
Right around there. But I said it then that I believed then, and I believe now, that we need a change in leadership style, or we need a change in leadership. And I feel like the public said that they're pretty happy with my leadership. So, here we are. Where do we go from here?
And 65%, I mean, that's huge.
Well, especially when, my opponent raised
Yeah.
$155,000 and was spending her own money on signs advertising for her law firm, and, you know, and had every single power broker Republican behind her, all the electeds behind her. So it felt really good at 7:15 on November 6th.
I can only imagine. So for those of you who aren't on first name basis with the Hillsborough County School Board, April just mentioned Susan Valdez and Cindy Stewart are two of her fellow board members, and they've also been publicly, they've been vocal in their lack of...
Honest.
Yes, there we go, thanks, I'm trying to be
Their
politically
truth. They, you know, I mean, I think we're all speaking our truth, our own individual truth. We all have our relationships with the superintendent, and I think that we're speaking the truth that we know based on our relationship, our individual relationships with her.
So not to make this kind of an attack against the superintendent, I don't want it to come across that way at all to our listeners. There have been some good things that have, under her watch, have happened in Hillsborough. She was just recognized last week, I believe, for, what was it,
Superintendent of the Year.
her colleague, Superintendent of the Year by other superintendents.
Superintendents from the state of Florida made her Superintendent of the Year.
Yeah, so.
Just recently.
So talk to me about some of the wins and we don't necessarily have to attribute these to Superintendent Ilya.
I'll give credit where credit's due. I think, you know, and this is what I've said all along. I see her strengths. She is a very smart woman. She's a very hardworking woman. You know, my children were a benefit of the magnet program in Hillsborough County. Both of my kids went to Blake. And now we're classically trained guitarists, and that was such a great high school experience for them. They went to Magnet Middle School. She is the reason why we have magnet schools in Hillsborough County, because she was in that role back then. I don't want to talk so much about the data and where we've grown here and there, because to be perfectly honest with you, and there's a book out called How to Lie with Data. I've seen some things that give me pause where the data is concerned and the numbers that I've seen coming out. But she has definitely put us on the map nationally. With various organizations, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Yeah,
she's
huge.
very well respected in Tallahassee. She has good relationships with our governor and leaders in Tallahassee. She has her strengths. I've never ever denied that she has her strengths. And what I said, and I will not mention names, but I was having a conversation with one of our editors of one of our major papers, and I said, you know, because he was mentioning those things, and I said, I agree with you. Yes, those are all good things. But when children are dying in our district due to our neglect, and by the way, we have settled both of those cases and another case where another ESE child was kicked off a bus and broke her leg, that's us. And when those things are happening, when kids are dying in our district due to our neglect, all of those good works go right out the window where I'm concerned. If we had a teacher in this district or an employee in this district who was performing at the top of their game and then did something that caused a child to die or be hurt, and they were neglectful, they would be held accountable. Why is the person in charge not being held accountable?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because her contract won't allow it.
So it looks like we've got this. I should probably enter, and it's related, sort of. Somebody sent us an email with some breaking news. Apparently, there was a school shooting in.
Oh no.
Yeah, in Portland. I'm waiting for this link to load. Unfortunately, technology here isn't the best, so bear with me. But that's something else that we can talk about. I want to, as soon as this comes up, I want to give details here. 3 shots near Alternative High School in Northeast Portland. Let's see, it looks like the suspect has left the scene, and it's not an active shooter situation. There's no word yet on the extent of injuries, but victims are alive and breathing when they were taken to the hospital. So it sounds like everybody's going to be okay, but again, we're seeing school shootings in the news. So let's transition into that. we had a couple of callers on hold who I think got tired of holding, so I do want to get to those. So if you want to go ahead and get in on the queue, I am going to be taking calls, and I will get to them very, very quickly. The number 813-239-9663. But real quick on that, what's going on with Hillsborough County's plans to handle these types of situations? I know there was some active shooter. I was at a meeting.
Trainings and all.
There was a training, and there was a heart-wrenching video that they showed. Where are we at with all that?
The superintendent recommended that we put armed guards, not law enforcement, but armed guards in all of our elementary schools. And we're going to be phasing that in. We have, they're essentially floating from one school to the next right now. We're in the first phase of that, and then we're going into phase 2 and then phase 3. And I believe it's going to take 4 phases to get all of the elementary schools covered with armed security guards. To be perfectly honest with you, I voted against that because I felt that I don't want to see us become a police state. I mean, these kind of things are gut-wrenching when you see them happening, but I just don't know that spending $4 million a year to have armed security guards in our elementary schools is really the answer to the problems. We've seen so many tragedies averted in Hillsborough County because of our own students coming forward and reporting incidents that they think are going to happen when they hear of someone saying that they're going to bring a gun, or they see something on Facebook, any kind of threat. We've created a culture where the students trust when they come forward to us, we're going to take them seriously and we're going to look into it. And a young man, unfortunately, just went to jail recently because of his threats to shoot up the school out at Freedom High School. I think that was last year.
It's just such a shame that we even have to have this conversation.
Oh, I know.
You know,
I know. It breaks my heart.
I was in, I believe, high school when Columbine happened, and it seems like that was really kind of the...
You are such a baby.
I just gave away my age, didn't I? Sorry.
You're a baby.
All right, April, we've got a ton of people. The phones are starting to light up here, so let's see if people have questions. And feel free to ask about anything school board related, whether it's transportation or the breaking news that we just brought you about the shooting in Portland. We'll be happy to address it all. Sam in Brandon, you are on the air on the last call. What would you like to say? So are you referring to situations where, like in high school specifically, where teachers are having, actual relationships with their students, or are you talking about?
Well, I can address that. There used to be a day where, this has always happened, believe it or not. We just haven't heard about it in the news the way we are now. And what used to happen is this. Let me walk you through a scenario. So a student complains or a parent complains about an inappropriate relationship between a teacher and a student. This is in the past. And what would happen was that teacher would be called in. They would be told, this is being said. You need to go pack up your classroom and you need to go. And what they do is they go 1-2 counties over and they get a job elsewhere. So those, we've all heard the rumors about teachers. I heard them when I was in school. What's happening now is that's called passing the trash. What's happening now is when those reports are made, we are taking it very, very seriously, and we first do our own internal investigation with our Office of Professional Standards. If there are findings, we then immediately turn it over to law enforcement. So what's happening is, and maybe the reason why it seems like it's just such a crisis right now, is because it was brushed under the rug for years and years, not just in Hillsborough County, in education in general. And so now, as we are reporting these things, it seems like it is much worse than it has ever been. And that's because there's just more public knowledge of it now.
So April, you said that you guys.
It's not right, and
conduct,
we need to keep them out.
you conduct an investigation, you make sure that there are actual findings. What happens to the
hold
teacher
on, I'll put you as a
during that process? Are they left in the
Okay.
classroom
No,
during
no.
the investigation?
They are immediately pulled out of the classroom.
So, all right,
WMNF
I think that's
result.
wonderful to protect our students. If there's an allegation made about one of my kids' teachers that they're doing something inappropriate, like I don't want my child to be subjected to that potential situation. But what if there's false allegations? So that's not fair for the teacher.
No,
to
it's
get,
not.
You know,
And that
their
happens.
lives uprooted.
That happens too, and I actually, this afternoon, met with the head of human resources, and we're going through this whole process right now where we're writing policy handbooks for the Office of Professional Standards and Human Resources. And one of the things that had been happening that we realized was an issue is that it took sometimes 4 months to resolve one of these issues.
Wow.
We're working very closely with the investigators from CPI, Child Protective Investigators, and they are really understanding that we've got these employees, we've taken them out of their environment, and it's not good, if it is a false allegation, it's not good for that teacher to be away from their students for 4 months. So we've gotten it down to 2 weeks sometimes for an investigation. And CPI
Is it without pay?
No, it is not without pay until they're arrested. And that's
Okay.
because of the contract that we have with the teachers union.
All right. That covers
well,
that, I think.
well, in some cases, if our findings are serious, are really, really solid, yes, it is without pay. Well, the superintendent will make a recommendation to dismiss.
So we have an email, and I want to try to keep this quick. Should we or can we afford to do so much busing? For example, should students taking advantage of the school choice program be responsible for getting to their chosen school? What are your thoughts on that? I know in Pinellas, it used to be that if your child went to a fundamental school, there was no busing. They've recently changed that.